Great news, folks. I know when the housing market will start to heal itself. And we're going to talk about this because, again, we have this thing we call the 54-year spreadsheet. I spent some time reviewing it this morning, and I think the answers are in the 54-year spreadsheet. When is the housing market going to heal itself? Well, we're going to run through this with Dion and Matt. Let's welcome Matt to the show. You were first today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm just doing super excited to be here on a Wednesday morning.
Yeah, and you shared as you opened up, it's currently 22 degrees where you are, so that's cold. I'm surprised the internet works at 22 degrees.
Honestly, you guys, you make it easy for me. This is horrible. It's horrible.
Dion, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Matt's temperature reminds me why real estate is local.
Yeah, exactly. Why real estate is local. Yeah. Live where you want, invest where the numbers make sense. You don't have to live there, young man.
It's true.
I tell you. So again, I want to talk about the housing market. One of the things that the three of us got right is we were going to have a housing crash. Unlike the doomers and crash bros who were talking price, the three of us got behind the idea that we would have a transaction crash. Uh-huh. Without a doubt, we were right. They were wrong. I now, for the first time, feel good about articulating when the housing crash in transactions will be over. But let's just talk about transactions in price and all of that. We'll go to you first, Dion. That's something we all got right, correct?
Yeah, I think one of our first videos with you and me that kind of went what I would call viral, I think like 30,000 views in the first week, was us admitting we were wrong and there's a crash. And then pointing out, we've been saying it's a crash in transactions and just saying, look, let's just call it a crash. It's how many deals are happening, not in the price. Mm-hmm. And I still think it's that way, even though one of us is calling for medium home price to come down a little. I don't see it. I still don't see it. I still don't see it for a couple of years. We've got too many people trapped with 28 years left, maybe 27 years left now on those sub 3% interest rate, 30-year fixed rate debt problem. And I don't see that changing until we're probably maybe 5 years into that, where people will start looking at number of years left on the loan might make sense to refinance.
Yeah, we just need life events to pile up, because again, I think Lance Lambert, he and I talked, we were in New York together at Resi Day. Shout out Lance. He's a perfect example, right? He and his wife bought a brand new home, have a sub 3% mortgage, bought a home that was right for the family at the time. But you know what? Life happened. They had another kid. He would love to get a home with another bedroom, but he can't fathom going from let's call it a 3 to a 7. And he's not even sure he'd qualify, right? It's a lot easier to qualify at 3 than 7, right? So again, what do? Well, babies are small. You get a crib. That's going to probably hold them for a couple of years. Then what do? Then you get bunk beds, right? So you're probably 4 or 5 years before they get to be the size where they're rambunctious enough when it gets loud enough where like, okay, let's separate them. So you're absolutely right. It takes stacking of events. So Matt, you and I have been big on this transaction crash. And it was, you can't argue the fact we're below 4 million. We were over 6. But again, I have good news. I know when it's going to fix itself, but let's talk about being right for a minute. Take your victory lap.
If I took a victory lap every time I should take a victory lap, I wouldn't be the size that I am, but I'd be running marathons like Zoob over there. But I think, hey, it is what it is. That's what happened. We know that stuff moves slowly. We knew that rates were moving higher. We knew that every single time, like Dion likes to say, every time Matt insults somebody, an angel gets its wings. There's so many different variations of that. But really, truly, what we're looking at from a market perspective is that every single time that interest rate goes up a point, you take another 30%, 25% of the market out of the market. Mm-hmm. And so we've realized and identified, we know what the real new number is. And it's basically you pick up some momentum under 6 and you become a world beater at 5, So at 5, this market goes nuts again. And price depreciation, if we're going to see that, it stops. I've seen the slowness of the market with, first it was the election, and now since the election and kind of running up to the election, rates were going higher.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we're back in the low 7s. New houses are still can be bought down into the low 5s. But now there's more certainty about the economy. So I would guess that they're probably picking back up again. I would suspect that the existing home market is not picking back up again because we're not buying down rates into the 5s. And so we're now at 7.25. And what's the number of houses, number of median homes available versus number of new homes available? Well, that's where all of these things, kind of intersect, and everything has dependency.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to what I uncovered. So again, the great news is we've been giving away the 54-year spreadsheet. Just go to onerentsalatatime.com, download it. It's free. There's all kinds of economic data. Go to the last tab. We source all the data from Fred and all of that. All the links there. Go check it yourself. There's nothing hidden. Go recreate the spreadsheet yourself. If you're a total nerd, go nuts. But here's the deal. I've been asked so many times by real estate agents, real estate brokers, when does the market get better for us? Right. They're a community that is really hurt the most by transaction crash, which we got right. And more of them are like, they're at their wits' end, right? It's tough. It's tough. So I've been spending a lot of time, and I finally came to the answer this morning. And again, I think the answer is in the spreadsheet. So again, if you haven't got the spreadsheet, go download it. And here we go. So if we go back and look at the cycle peak, it was 1978. We did roughly 4 million existing home sales. And if you don't know what happened in 1978, we went basically on a 4 or 5 year rate increase cycle. Transactions by 1982 were down 50%. We went from 4 million to under 2 million. So I think there's answers in that. So again, we went on the fastest rate increase cycle on record. Our peak in 2021 was 6.1 million. 6.1 million. Again, last time the cycle was 4 years. So I do think the cycle bottom will be 2025. So depending if you're a glass half full, glass half empty, 2025 will be the cycle low based on history for housing transactions. I think we're going to
end of.
No, the calendar year.
Yeah, during the calendar year.
Yeah. So the numbers will be something like this. In 2024, we will tick lower. I think 2023 we did 4.1. We're going to go below 4. We'll probably do 3.9, 3.95, something sub 4 in 2024. And if 2025 is going to be the cycle low, I do think it'll be kind of like 3.6, 3.7 million. Yep. So down another 10%. Roughly, right? Yeah. But then good news. Again, if you go back and look at the 54-year spreadsheet, 1983, rates were still 16%. I think they were 13% in 1983. That's that. So they were 13% coming down from 16%. What happened? Well, we had our first pop. We had that spring, right? Because what happens when rates are high? Demand is just pushed down like a spring. Then you get that pop. To your point earlier, Matt, rates go from 7 to sub 6, and bam.
Yeah.
All of this demand comes back.
Yep.
Transactions went up 30% in one calendar year.
Yeah.
So my current call, guess, crystal ball, smoke signals, 2025, the last rough year, probably the roughest, but hopefully if you listen to this channel, you've been right-sizing your business. And then 2026, you're going to see a 25, 30, heck, 40% pop in transactions. So let's quantify that. We'll go from, say, 3.7 to 4.3. That'll be market moving. So that's what I'm thinking. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of that can happen. I've already sent a letter to Trump requesting nicely that he not touch or do anything until at least January 1st and not message it to the market in hopes that I still might claim your dollar.
Good luck. There's no chance. There's not enough time in the calendar. You are just wrong. Give it up. Mail it now.
I will not give it up. But what I have done is to make myself feel better. We'll talk later about how I'm making $25,000 an hour now. Yeah. But that being said, I think you're right. I mean, the key, as always, is payment and interest rate. That's the key.
Affordability. It's the
It's
combination.
exactly. It's the combination of these things. We always tell people, I'll buy your house for $1 million if you give me a 1% rate for 30 years, or I'll buy it for $300,000 if you give me a 5% rate. Like it's just math. So I think that you're right. I mean, that's so what you've outlined, if rates come down and we get into those fives, it's going to get the market moving again.
The spring pops.
Yes.
Spring pops.
The only caveat that I'll have to that is jobs. So if jobs all of a sudden start to get more wonky and we see a lackluster, Christmas season because people are already maxed out on their credit, if we see that, then that would be the only thing I think that can stop it.
Yeah, I've got so much more to say there, but let's bring Dion into the equation. Yeah. Dion, what do you think of my logic? What do you think of the 54-year spreadsheet unlocking 2026 as the time the market heals?
So in the short term, I think we're going to see data that makes it look like 2024 is worse than it is. I think the election pause is stronger than people anticipate.
Yes.
I had the course call last night, and there was a couple of guys that had units available, just rentals available, and it's not like selling a property or anything. And just no activity for 3 weeks at the day after the election. Didn't matter who won. It was the election's over. So ton of activity. One was rented within a couple of days. The other one's got a bunch of inquiries. So there was that pause going on. And I think the October data is going to make it look like transactions even went lower.
For sure. No doubt.
Because of the pause. Then a bunch of that's going to happen in November. So I think at the end of 2024, like January, it's going to look like there was that checkmark recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I think spring 2025 is going to be a lot of pent up demand coming.
It could.
I just don't know where the supply would come from. So
yeah,
have the same issue.
Yeah. So this is kind of my thought process, tying together all of my economic data. Again, we put a lot out on the daily financial news. So what makes me think? So again, there's looking at history. There's the understanding that the future rhymes with the past. But how did I get there? Well, one of the things that I've said for a while is I expect rates to be higher for longer. And I think that's the anchor. That's what made me feel good about calling 2025 lower than 2024, because I really do think, guys, we might average 7% mortgage rates for 2025. And if we average, again, might go lower, might go higher, but average 7% for the year, I can't see transactions above 2024. Dion, what do you think? What do you think? Am I crazy thinking we might have rates at 7 for the year?
So in the 52-year spreadsheet, 50 coming up on 53, do you track population?
No, I track transactions, account or
right.
ownership.
So United States population 1978 compared to United States population 2024.
Not there.
If we went from 4 million in 78 to 4 million now, how much of a decrease in transactions is that if populate? Because I don't know the data. I'd have to look.
Yeah, no, again, we could, again, I love tweaking. I could add population to that. Again, the Census Bureau has the data, so we could source it, make the link. Because you're right, because I think Lance Lambert actually said something at Resi Day talking about transactions, being at a cycle low. And then he added on top of that, if we adjust for population, to your point, it's a historic low.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like, because you think about it, I don't know what the numbers are, 30 million people more than 78, 50 million. I have no idea.
Oh, it's a lot more than that.
I'll do some Googling. Well,
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't trust Kamala on this number, but she thinks 330 or 200 and something million people died. It's more like, I think it's like 350 or 360 now. And then it was in the twos.
All right. So population of US in 1978.
222 million.
All right. So yeah. We got the same number. And then we'll say 2023.
I think it's like 350, 360.
Yeah, 330. Let's call it 335.
Yeah,
was it?
Biden added 24 million. So
yeah, so that's 120 million more people.
A third.
And what is that? 50 years, roughly? 45 years?
Basically a third more population to have the same transactions.
Well, see, no. So let's be clear. So again, the transactions in 1978 were 4 million. The transactions were coming off in 2021 were 6.1 million. So that's not the same.
Well, right, but I mean, we were talking 2023.
All right, right, okay. So then 2023, we're now at 4. Okay, I see what you're saying. So I'm calling the cycle low. Okay, so last cycle's peak. I got you. I'm with you.
Yes.
Got it.
The other piece
that's accurate. Yeah, that is absolutely true.
The other piece that you're going to want to put in there, because not enough people are talking about it, insurance. It doesn't, the amount of money, if you go from 6% to 5%, that's still a feel good. Oh, you're talking about feelings. Still a feel good number. They're feeling like it's good. And then they're going to get their insurance quote. And they're going to realize that because that doubled, they just lost a massive percentage of what that payment used to be. Like
insurance is
the hardest thing we negotiated this year by far was insurance.
Yeah, and you do it different than most people. You get one blanket or portfolio. I'm not even sure what they call it. You put everything together and wrap it all up. And you also have the ability, given your size, to get a deductible that most people don't get.
Correct. And we still saw 20%, 25% increases.
Yeah,
and
mine was 30.
And that was with having the ability, having the know-how, understanding how to construct these things, knowing all of that stuff, and I still got hit with 20 points.
Yeah. Dion?
And the biggest argument that I get anytime I talk about insurance is you get somebody in the comments who goes, well, in my state, we're only allowed to have insurance increase 5 or 10% a year. And I'm like, okay, just like rent control, then how many policies were canceled?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to go get a new policy now that's 100% more, but it's not an increase because that's a new policy. And that's what happened with about, I don't know, 3 properties of me. So not quite half my portfolio.
Yeah, no, it happened to me. I mean, I had plenty of properties because, again, I'm in California and it hit us hard. I had many properties that just refused to renew. Right? It wasn't technically a cancellation. It was a refuse to renewal. And I had all of those went up 50%.
Do you guys have all of your stuff with one company?
No.
Or a majority with one company?
No.
Yeah. So
I'm only this big. So yeah, a majority. Probably like 5 are with one company, 3 are with the other.
Okay.
Yeah. So I divide it resi and commercial. We have a company that does residential cheaper, meaningfully cheaper. So they get all the resi, and then there's they don't do any commercial. So we go commercial for somewhere else.
The only thing I would do, Mike, is I would just add one player in each of those spaces for you. That's the same thing that I've done. So we've got 2 commercial and 2 resi, and we're constantly playing the 2 against each other. And most importantly, they're number 1 and number 2 providers in the market.
Yeah.
So we just let them know, like, we literally will say to them in the email, no problem. We're happy to bring this over to Andover. We get a call within 9 seconds from the rep.
I like it. I will certainly look at that. So again, I think, Dion, you brought up a very interesting point. We're going to do less housing transactions in 2024 than we did in 1978. That is eye-opening and frankly something I missed. I still think we're going to do even less in 2025. But and again, because I think in 2025 we're going to have rates averaging 7. Again, maybe the end of the year is lower than the beginning, whatever. But I think inflation expectations are taking off. I think the Fed's going to have a higher neutral rate. I think there's thoughts that some policies will be inflationary, which will cause the Fed to slow down and kind of wait and see. Which means that 2025 will be a hard year for any business that relies on debt. The good news is it's the last hard year. If we repeat history, 2026 will be, 2026 will feel amazing.
Yeah.
Because it'll be a 30% pop from 2025. But if you look at the big scheme of things, we're going to go from 3.7 to 4.3. And then again, if we repeat history, the march from 4.3 back to 6.1, which is the cycle peak, will take years. But again, 2026 will feel, somebody's been starving for 5 years, and then you go to a buffet, you're going to gorge yourself. So I think 2026 will feel amazing. What do you think, Matt?
Yes, it's going to eat till you hurt. But Elon, I watched a lot of his interviews running up to the election, watched a lot of his, some Trumps, some of the other guys that were talked about being, potentially appointees of his.
Sure.
And without exception, every single one of them said in the near term, there's going to need to be some pain.
Yeah.
I think your call is probably right with that pain being, and Powell's not going to lose his job.
No, he can't. No.
I think Trump's going to let him take the fall.
Yeah, he'll let it run out. He's gone in 26. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that all that has to happen for what you're saying is going to happen is nothing.
Exactly. Just let it play out. And then the last thing I'll say before I go back to Dion is the buyer's market that I got right, that started like 8 or 10 weeks ago. If I'm right about rates through most, if not all of 2025, good news, folks. If you're an investor, you're a one rental at a time, do the work, buy box kind of person, you got a long time to take advantage of the situation, because motivated sellers will get increasingly easy to find. Dion?
So there's something I've been harping on for 3 years now. Every time somebody talks about affordability indexes, I talk about a major flaw that I see. I think nobody has the data on the income people are making now that remote work is close to half of the people have the option, right? 56% of people are required to work in the office based on the last study, meaning 44% can work remotely, at least part-time. So my Goldilocks zone of where I invest kind of expanded out a little bit more commuting. So rents pushed up, but property prices didn't. I think 2025 stays kind of the same, but by 2026, which will make more transactions happen, I think we'll have enough of the companies like Tesla and Starbucks and Amazon that said, okay, everybody back to the office. But people realized, oh, that's getting a lot of press, but it's a very small percentage of the actual workforce. So in 2026, I think those remote workers right now that don't want to buy, which is why rents have pushed up, but property values haven't, a little bit further out from cities. I think in 2026, they're going to settle down and go, I think I'm in a permanent work remotely position.
I think that's amazing.
So
no, I love how you tie that together, because first and foremost, your first mover advantage, realizing, if you just moved your circle 30 minutes, led to an amazing deal, life-changing money for most people with your duplex. And I think you're right. I do think if you are working remotely and you get through 2025 and there's no mandate, you now realize it's quote unquote a permanent situation. I think that's a genius move. So, all right, folks, good news. 2025 will be the last hard year. It starts to get better in 2026. Let's transition to topic number 2. You heard it earlier. Matt was bragging about making $25,000 an hour. Earlier last month, we talked about Dion making $2,200 or whatever it was an hour. $37.50. Not that anybody's keeping track.
Nope.
But Matt's making 25 grand an hour. I hear one of the keys is opportunity zone, which we haven't talked in a while, but break it down for us. How the heck are you making $25,000 an hour?
Yeah. So I think, obviously what you and Dion do, which is you're looking at your markets every day. You have MLS stuff set up. You have all the contacts that you built and your network being your net worth over time. All of those things matter. And then anytime that we can add a log to the fire, we try and do that. And so one of the things that I started looking at was what are all the big boys around me doing that I'm not doing? I always have something to learn. And so I'm watching and seeing what they're doing. So one of the things I talk a lot about in my course is go and sit in a council meeting, go and sit in a courtroom and see what goes on there. So you understand how your local politics work, because that's going to be the biggest impact to you. And so I was doing that, following my own advice, and heard about something called an opportunity zone. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting.
That's new. What's that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Opportunity. So I was like, I'm on it. So I'm watching it and I look and I find out that most cities have a map of opportunity zones. Now, some of those opportunity zones are opportunity zones because it looks like Beirut. Fine. Don't want to be there. However, there's a number of them that have been opportunity zones for a decade or for 15 years. And now it's 70, 80% the neighborhood's gone through. And all these other developers have done all the heavy lifting. So I had found one of those things. I valued those properties more. So I had kind of my own separate, every single time a property would come in, I'd look it up and say, is it in the opportunity zone? And so the jail that I bought is in an opportunity zone. Now, I always believe that you give and do before you ask, because I think that you always want to show that you deserve to be trusted, that you are invested before you start asking for things. And so this was a very simple process. It was not difficult at all. It was, I had bought something in an opportunity zone. I knew that it had the ability to get 3, 5, or 7 years worth of tax rebates. And basically what they do is they fix the price. It's kind of like Prop 13 in California, where when you buy the property, your taxes are stuck in place at what you bought it for. It's not like that in most places in the country.
Correct.
And that's why California has to keep raising their taxes every year on income. And so the cool thing is that when you find and identify those places, it takes no extra effort to look at them, no extra effort to work them. It's fairly straightforward. So we bought the building. We didn't go right in and ask for that because we didn't want it to kick off right away, because we were still within that same tax year. Right. So we didn't want it to kick off right away, but we wanted them to see that our plan had been approved by the city council. The permits had been approved. All of that was part of the normal project. Where the value came in and the extra 5 hours worth of work was, okay, now we've done some things. Now we can ask for that opportunity zone rebate.
So let me kind of summarize. You bought a distressed asset.
Yes.
Fair.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
unused city property. Yeah.
Yeah. It was distressed. In the right location, right? There's a map. Every city, or at least most cities, have an opportunity zone. You can say, hey, is it in the map? Yes or no. It's very much black and white.
And it can be small cities too. This is only a city of 10,000 people. So it's not a city of 150,000. It's just 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Every city has them.
Yeah. And what you did, which might be very different than most operators, is you went in and started attacking the remodel, right? You got the plans, you got this, you got that. You turned an unfunctioning asset into a functioning asset. And then you go back to the folks and say, hey, oh, by the way, opportunity zone, look at the asset. These are what we did. And that's your 5 hours in a cancel meeting. Is that kind of fair?
Yeah, basically it was. So it's not even close to functioning yet. We've just proven to the town or to the city that we're doing the work. Right.
You got the, how far? Like, are you 30% in, 50% in?
No, I'd say we're probably between 20 and 30%. I'd say.
So it's enough for the eye to see there's changes going on.
Yes. Yep. That's the key. We've pulled other permits. So we've pulled a permit for the sprinkler system. We've pulled a permit for the framing and resheeting. We pulled a plumbing permit. We pulled an electrical permit. Now, none of that work, or very little of that work, is done overall. Like I said, maybe 20-25%. However, all those permits have been pulled and they've been seeing steady progress being made there. And so that's not anything that I'm doing. That's just because all of those companies are the ones that had to pull the permits, not me. They're the ones that had to fill out the reports, not me. So the only time that I had into this was essentially knowing that it was an opportunity zone, knowing that we eventually could pull that cord, and pulling that cord consisted of creating an argument for what that is. And here's the really cool thing, ChatGPT cheaters out there. I created my document in the outline from ChatGPT, and then I just filled in some of the particulars. Right. But in filling in some of those particulars, it was 1 2-page document at the city that I was able to print offline, fill it out, accompany it with the document that I made. And I'm a really slow typer, so it could have been less than 5 hours, but because I'm such a slow typer, it was 5 hours. But put that together per the recommendation of ChatGPT and what the city looks for, send it in. I get their preliminary approval saying, yes, this can be heard at a city council meeting. And then I was at the city council meeting last night for an hour and it was approved.
There you go. So Dion, all I could say is, first off, Matt is amazing. That's why the three of us, he's on the ground, running the plays, dealing with all of this. I at least look at that going, too much work, too hard. I don't have the knowledge. Don't want the knowledge.
Final number.
We'll get there in a minute. But Dion, what do you think of all that work? Is that something you want to start tackling?
So I want to start with first, not for the video and not for anybody watching. Matt, you know I consider you a close friend, right? We live far across the country, but we text all the time. I
Yes.
reach out to you for advice. I seriously
do
care
all the
about you,
time.
right?
Yes,
Okay. So I don't want it to seem like an attack.
it's totally fine.
Okay.
I
You
knew
are
before I said
standing-
anything I was wrong.
you are standing on the edge of a cliff.
hmm
You're right on the edge of a cliff that you could fall off of this cliff of work. And I think a huge mistake that a lot of people make is they go, how many videos are there on YouTube that say copy the rich? Right? And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people do. You take somebody like Elon Musk, or you take somebody like Bill Gates, and you think, okay, what do they do every day? I'm going to do that. You'd be homeless in a week.
Sure.
Everybody that doesn't have the assets to support let me go support my teams and think of things for my companies to do to make money would be homeless in a week. And you use the term, I looked around me for what are some of the big boys doing. That's the term you use, the big boys. What are they doing?
Yep.
You reached financial freedom, which you've intimated to us that you reached financial freedom so you could spend time with your kids. You can be around to watch them, be in their sports, take them to school, be a part of their life as they're young. And you have the skill set and the ability and the mind to take on massive projects, to understand opportunity zones, to see the next thing being an 180 build for the city that gets all kinds of federal money coming your way for this. You can see those projects because that's what the big boys are doing. And you're going to miss out on these 10 years that you'll never get back while your kids are between 2 and 12. And I know you shake your head, but it's because you're on the cliff. You can still see it. You're still taking your kids to school. You're still spending time with them. But you can see the next project that turns you into, because you haven't, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, you haven't flipped the switch yet of what is enough. Right. You're making $100 and something thousand an hour by going and taking advantage of the opportunity zone. Sure, it's a byproduct for something you did well. Take advantage of it, like taxes. We don't make decisions based on taxes. We don't let that tail wag the dog. We benefit from the tax benefits that happen from the things we were going to do anyways. So I'm just saying, as a friend, we're watching.
Be careful.
And I'm gonna jump in when you start doing things that will make a ton of money. Will sound like a great deal. But it's going to dominate your life.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the key to this is, and the reason any strategy that I'm looking at is going to be a high reward, low risk, low effort. I'm taking a page out of the lazy book. Now I can't be comatose, Dion. I have to still do something because my kids
things that don't make money.
Oh, I do. I absolutely do stuff that doesn't make money. And it's I mean, I collect baseball cards and Pokemon cards, and that's fun. And it's not to make money. People are like, you overpaid. I was like, dude, I don't give a flying flip. I paid $3 instead of $2.
Oh no.
Yeah, my word, my life is over. So yeah, so I do a lot of fun stuff. You know, when my kids are at school, I'm actually either usually playing with Abigail or my youngest, my 1-year-old, or I'm playing with my baseball cards, and I love it. And it's been a lot of fun. And I miss it a lot. But again, it's not to make money, but I think I think that there's that happy medium, which is you can't do it exactly like Elon year 20 or Bill Gates year 20. Cause then I agree with you. Then you die. Then you die. Everything that they're doing is completely impractical. But I think that there's steps that it took to get to where they are. And I'm totally cool not going 100 steps, but I'm totally cool going 20 or 25 and saying, nope, this is kind of good enough for me, because by only making these 2 tiny, small changes, I get access to $175,000 of tax relief. And I was going to buy a property anyway. It just mattered more where I bought it. Like you could have bought anywhere you wanted to, but you bought in the place that you were like, I'd like to live here and also get the greatest return. So I think that the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. I don't think you have to be comatose and also leave a bunch of money on the table. And that's where I think that you've won, is that you're driving 18 grand a month in profit, 20 grand a month in profit. And you play video games when you want, you sleep when you want, sometime, most often when I text you, you're like, hey, sorry, I was sleeping. and that's a good thing. But I think for me, it's, if I can do things that are minimal effort, like if it to this point, if it were 100 hours worth of work and federal meetings and state meetings and county meetings, I wouldn't have done it. It was only because it was so attainable that I did it.
Well, here's an image I've said and I play with, and I think actually plays here. So again, I've talked about all of us, everyone that watches this channel, frankly, is on a mountain climbing their financial freedom number, right? Wherever that is. I was very clear with folks in 2018. I chose to sit down, right? And enjoy the view. What I think you're doing, Matt, is you've certainly slowed down. You're no longer running the hill.
No.
But you're still choosing again, and we all have this choice. Back to Dion's point, you won the game, stop playing. But you're like, I'm still going to tinker. I'm still going to move. We talked off air. All right, you're going to be 50 in 3 or 4 years. In
3 years, yeah.
I think that, and that was certainly a magic number for me. I don't know why that was kind of like a one of those, because again, I've always thought life expectancy is 100 years. You get to 50, you're at the halfway mark. I've done a lot of traveling with people in the 80s. The last 20 years are tough. So it's like, hey, I've only got so much left. I don't know. You're not sitting down, I guess, is my point in this. And I clearly am, although I reserve the right to stand up at any moment and go higher. I think Dion is sat down as well, but I don't know. That's my kind of image, Dion.
Can I break your brain, Zoob?
Yeah, of course.
Somebody gives you 3% debt.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a nice little war chest now.
Yep.
You doing nothing?
Maybe. I mean, so the only thing that would get me up, I mean, because again, I'm operating it like,
because you've talked about trading in a bunch of single families.
I was going to go there. I was going to go there.
Yeah.
So I have the same skill I had 5 years ago. There's no question. Yeah. There's no question. I am not using it. I am operating at, a very low RPM, but I know I can drop the hammer at any point.
Absolutely.
I've been very clear. The one thing that would get me off the sidelines and go hard. Hard. Is if we have 18 months of more appreciation in entry-level housing. So if you take all my intro-level housing and you slap 15, 20, 25% equity on that, that's going to be unhealthy. And that's going to be like 4 or 5 years is going to be a problem. I will absolutely jump back in the game, sell all of them, gone.
Every one of them.
Everyone. And I will 1031 probably more than half of them into commercial properties. And I will execute that like I did last time in a 9 to 18 month window. You want to get my ass off the sidelines? Let me trade 30 homes and make it 300 apartments.
So
I will absolutely do that.
So you do have a number and you will jump back in.
Right. There's a couple of dominoes that have to fall, but no, there's no question.
I look forward to baptizing you then too.
if you're going to hand me somewhere between 10 and $15 million for a year of work, I'm going to take it.
It's just probably
going to happen.
It will take, because that every asset that you buy, it's going to take you a year or two to kind of get through it, right?
Of course.
And then it's going to take you a year or two to get through, get rid of selling all that
stuff. My get through is not your get through. My get through is I get to talk to guys, I get to walk a couple of properties, but they're doing the work, right? All right. So.
Sure. No, absolutely. But see, that's the thing, that's where I think the misnomer is that this was legitimately 5 hours. My flip house, I'm up to 12 and a half hours on.
I love that you track that.
I'm dying with the 12 and a half. I'm 12 and a half in, and bastards made me show up twice this week.
Oh my gosh.
Assholes. Like, you do realize I have a schedule to keep. I'm trying to beat Dion. Like, what? I was like, long story.
Never mind.
Like 12 and a half, 13 hours. I haven't updated for my time tomorrow, because I know I got to be there, but I'm going to be like probably 13 hours. And so we'll see what those things are. So I think what our constant message for folks is, which is, don't believe just because you think it's difficult that it is difficult. All three of us have spent the last few years demystifying all the craziness that everyone says that it is. I'd never want to be a landlord. I know, because you like being broke. So we've spent years demystifying this, and I think that there's further demystification that needs to happen. Hopefully that's a word. Ninth grade dropout. But if it's not a word, it should be. And so I think that we all are spending more time demystifying these things, because I think a lot of people think, oh my word, a project that's going to be like 100 hours of my time. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know anything that I'm doing. I'm going to be completely sunk. And also, oh my word, I have no idea how to even navigate this tax process. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So full disclaimer, I had never done Opportunity Zone before. This was my first time.
Yep.
5 hours. That's all I'm saying, is that I think that you do have a number. I think your number is going to be huge. And I think you're going to see it. And I think you're going to get it. And I think that in 2026, I think that Dion and I are going to have to be doing a lot of fill-in spots for you on your channel.
I'm on them, bro.
Because you're going to be a little bit more busy.
Yeah, it could happen. So Dan, what do you think of that, to Matt's point?
So I think there's a spectrum, right?
Yeah,
And,
no kidding.
Matt, you're still on the in your mind, you're on the growth opportunity, what's going to work spectrum. Zuber, you've sat down on the mountain, but you have these metrics of if this, then this, I'll get back in the game or whatever. And Matt said, let me break your brain. If somebody offered you 3%, would you then go? And you were like, I'm not sure, because don't really need it. I'll take it a step further. If somebody offered me 0% money, yeah, I'd put it in an account. I'd make the interest that the bank's going to give me. I'm not out buying new properties, because all that is your yield, right? You give me 30% money. If I could find a deal that gets me a yield, I'd use it. Give me 0%, right? I'd use it. I'm not going to change and now all of a sudden go, because I can go get the 7. I can find deals right now at 7%, and I'm not hunting. So if I had 0% money, I still wouldn't be hunting.
You take the 4.5. Yeah, you take the 4.5.
The easy 4.5.
Yeah.
And the hard thing is when you're starting out, Matt makes the most sense.
Oh, well, let's be clear.
I can make the deal better. I could take advantage of this Opportunity Zone. I could do this with the taxes. It's all great.
Yeah.
So
there's build mode or grind mode and chill mode. It's just different.
There's a variant in between. I really do think there's 3 steps. I really think that there's that all in 100% first 5 to 10, first 5 years, which is awful and sucks and is horrible. But then there's the next 5 to 15 where you're kind of like where Dion is right now, where it's like, oh, hey now. This
is kind of working.
What are you doing over there? And that's pretty cool. But then I think, so he reached that phase faster than most people do because it was good enough for him. And that's where people get to then right size it and say, okay, I can spend the next, because I think, Dion, you were saying it, maybe year 8 or 9 for you?
Year 8, I could.
Year 8, you
financially free.
Right. So really at 8, kind of early, but it's kind of in 5-year increments. First 5 completely, totally suck. Next 5, you could be Dion at the end of those 5. And the next 5, then it's like, okay, do you want to be bigger, have more, do more? Yes, you can do that too. So that's where everybody gets to right size, because maybe after 8, you're good. Maybe the markets, because the other challenging thing too is it all matters when you start.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you started in 2012 when Dion, or 2012 when Dion started, kind of right around that time frame, like you were a master at picking the market to sell. He was the master at picking the market of when to start.
Yeah.
Like that's the perfect time to start. Even if when you're talking amongst real estate people, that was the best time to start. Like I wish I'd started then and didn't have all the dross and garbage from the previous 8 years, 9 years that quite frankly kept my boat grounded for a long time. And so the challenge all is where you start. And if you're starting now, what do the next 10 years, and no one knows, what do the next 10 years look like? Are they going to be explosive growth? Are they going to be some right sizing? Are they going to be some pain? How long is the pain? All of those things. So you can't really, it's time in the market, not timing the market.
Yep.
And then you hope that your next decade looks more like an upside than a downside. Because, you turned the down market, Mike, into a massive upside. I didn't. I couldn't,
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears. We got a few minutes left. I want to go through a list that Manoj Mindset put together. I found it on X. He summarized, what are millionaires doing? And this was a combination with Lewis Howes, which I really like how he does his podcast. Shout out Lewis Howes, and George Kamal from Dave Ramsey fame. So again, there are 5 things that came from this summary. I'm going to go through the 5. I'll go through the 5 first, and then I'll let you guys kind of pick on the 5. And hey, do we have others? So here are the 5 according to Manoj Mindset. Number 1, live on less than you make. Number 2, delayed gratification. Number 3, they drive 4-year-old used cars. Number 4, 97% believe they control their own destiny. And number 5, they make a plan, they get on budget. So let's talk about the first 5 first and see if there's anything we would add to that. We'll go to you first, Matt. I don't think you've heard this list before. What do you think of the 5?
I really like it. I think that what they all, excuse me, what they all speak to is, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And that the best thing that you can do is have the lowest nut possible, the
Correct.
lowest, expense number possible. So you can then have more flexibility in your plan. That's what those that's what those topics speak to me, and largely how all of us got successful.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Dion, how'd that first, that 5 hit you?
So a lot of them are, it's that thing where it's really hard to remember what it's like not to know something.
Right. Yeah.
Right. We say often, if we had to start over, we have the confidence to know not only is it possible, but we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We know it worked. We know it didn't work. It'd probably improve our timeline and improve our outcome, but we can do something very similar. The 4-year-old car thing, I think it makes sense because we understand depreciation.
Yeah.
Drive off the lot. I mean, it feels good to get that brand new car, but you're just throwing away money. The 97% believe they control their destination. I'm surprised that's not 100.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think we all have people in our lives where you just look at them and you go, life happens to you, doesn't it?
Yeah. I got to tell you, that was the one that hit me the hardest. I mean, because I know a lot of people that just think that like give up their life to like the universe. It's like, you don't take any personal accountability, or it drives me crazy.
Let me know how your universe delivers your sandwich tomorrow morning.
Crazy.
The life happens to me people tend to be, having worked in law enforcement, it tends to be the people who can justify the criminal thing they did. I had to steal the catalytic converters because I've got a family to feed. If I don't get the money, they don't eat. Right now, eating's important. I can see the correlation, but the choices that made you be so broke you had to steal to get the food is the destiny that you didn't think you controlled. And that's just, and work related, but I've got people I call personal friends who we can never talk money.
Yeah.
Because everything is luck. Everything is the system. Everything, nothing is on them. And it's, and you should get it in the comments too. It's really hard to make a comment response going, you realize we live in the same world.
Yeah, exactly.
I ended up where I'm at, and you ended up where you're going, based on choices.
Yeah. So I'm going to let you guys think about this. I want to ask you to add your personal 6th, right? So we got the 5 from Lewis Howes and George Kamal. I'll give you my first one to buy you some time. My first one is, and it's really back to my 3 steps, right? And number 2 is you got to become elite at something. What do I mean by that in this context? All the millionaires that I know, all of them, I guess I shouldn't say all, but all that I can think of right now, they became millionaires by doing one thing really, really well. They were myopically focused on building a business, on real estate, on something. And it wasn't until they got to wherever they wanted to that they quote unquote diversified, right? They branched out. There is so many people that are broke trying to get 7 streams of income and divide up their dollar and put it in, let's dollar cost average in 7 different things. No, the millionaires, they do it usually one way. So that's the little cherry on top that I would add. Matt, you got one that you would add?
Yeah. Bet on yourself.
Oh,
and that's with everything. That's with how you invest your time, how you invest your money. What's really funny is I am a course converted guy. I never took courses. I just consumed what I could for free, and that was good enough. If I had it to do all over again, I'd have paid for courses when I was starting.
Yeah.
That
Me too.
I'm completely converted because I see now in my students' eyes and in their results how much, and I'm like broken because there's one part of me that's like joyous. I'm like, that is awesome. That is absolutely stinking awesome. And then I'm sitting there going, mother of pearl, I cannot believe that they did that in like 15 months. It took me
Right.
6 years to get there. You
Yeah.
know, and so to be able to think about that, and that is the biggest mistake that I made, was I should have paid for more knowledge earlier on.
It just would have shortened it.
But and that's it, right? You know, if we had, if that was out there, right? If we could find each other in 2005 or 2006, like, you guys would hate
Different.
me even more.
Yeah.
But I'd be told I was wrong that many more times, and you wouldn't be wrong. But we would all be that much better at the game and be that much further ahead. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we could all have double or triple the income that we have with much, much less work.
Yeah. There's no doubt. Dion, let's get your final one as we wrap up this wonderful hour.
So I think, to me, this is what would make the list important or not important. And it's a question most people have never asked themselves. What's more important to you? Time or money? And there are, because this is what do most millionaires do, right? I know a ton of millionaires I would not trade lives with.
Yeah, me too.
I wouldn't want their
agreed.
work schedule, their skill set, their jobs that they're doing, the stress of their life to have that money, versus I know some people who have assets that generate enough money for them to have the time freedom. And it tends to be they end up being millionaires because they got the time freedom through owning assets. Assets benefit from inflation. Inflation's made them millionaires. So have you asked yourself that question? What matters more, time or money? Because if it's money, there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of careers you can get into that make a lot of money.
That's right.
But would you have any of your own time?
Yeah, I love that. Again, you can follow Dion at Dion Talk Financial Freedom, and of course, the Lumberjack at the Lumberjack Landlord. Guys, you're amazing. Thank you for giving the audience your hour. I appreciate you. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Mike.